So in the previous lecture, we already added the App Center packages to our 3 projects, and we have initialized analytics and crashes for both our iOS and Android applications directly from here, the app.saml.cs file, from the onStart method that is being overridden from the application class from which, of course, app inherits. Now, during this lecture, I want to do 2 things. First, I'm going to add some very basic Xamarin application structure with the objective of doing the second thing, which is to create a very first test crash that can be reported directly to App Center, so we can start to take a look at what will happen in App Center when our application actually crashes. So let's go ahead and do that directly from here in the app class. In the constructor, where we know the main page is being assigned to a new instance of main page, I want to change things a little bit so I can navigate to 2 places aside from the main page. A login page that I'm going to create, which we are not going to be implementing the functionality for. It's just going to be a dummy page from where we can start reporting things to App Center. That's the focusing here. I don't want to focus too much on the Xamarin part of the application because you may already know how to do that. And in addition to navigating to that login page, we should be able to navigate to a new book page. Main page is going to remain the page where we are going to list all of the books. Again, this is all going to be simulated and we're not really going to be doing a lot of things directly from here, from Visual Studio. I want to focus on the App Center part, so let's do this quickly. I am going to first, of course, change how the main page is being created and create it as a new navigation page. And the navigation page is going to be initialized with the main page as the root. And that's everything that I need to change in here. So let me just close this file and I am going to be creating a couple of new files. Again, because I don't want to focus too much on the Xamarin part of the course, I am not really going to be creating any MVVM structure in here or something like that. So I am just going to be creating the 2 pages here on the root of the .NET Standard library. So I will add a new file that is, of course, going to be a content page SAML file. And one of them is going to be the login page. I'm going to be creating a second one or a third one, now that we have the main page as well, that is going to be the new book page. So these 2 new pages are ones to which I want to navigate. And again, I am going to be doing this rather quickly. In a real application, of course, you may want to navigate to these pages slightly differently, but the main focus in here in this lecture is to be able to start reporting some test crashes to App Center. So from the main page, I am going to be creating a button right below this label, or actually replacing the label. So all there is inside of this main page is a button that is going to have a text of login. And it is, of course, going to have a clicked event handler in the C# file. It is from this event handler from which I want to navigate over to the login page. So I will simply go ahead and add a call to push model async in this case and initialize a new login page, just like this. Maybe since this is async, I can make this async and await the call. And from the login page, I am going to have something very similar. I am not really going to be asking the user for their email or a password because I don't really have any list of users. I am just going to simulate that they have entered things and that they have the button and that they also have a text in here that says login and the clicked event handler to simulate that a user has logged in. This is also going to be async, and from here I am also going to be calling from navigation, in this case the pop model async method. And this is going to be animated, so I will pass true. And because I am on an async method, I can await this call, just like this, a simulation of a login. I don't really have any backend to support this, but I am simulating things in here. So I have the navigation to the login page, I have the navigation back to the main page where we maybe are listing books. Let's now add a button that can navigate us to the new book page where users would of course add new books that they have already read that would eventually be listed in the main page. So for that, over in the main page, I am going to be adding a toolbar. So I will access the toolbar items for the content page. And inside of here, I am going to be adding a toolbar item with a text of add or something like that. And of course, it should also have its own event handler. Now, let me change these names because these make no sense. This is going to be the add new book underscore clicked. This is not the best name, but it's better than handle click underscore one. And this is going to be the login button underscore clicked. So the names make a little bit more sense. And I will do the same thing for the login page. This is going to be the login button underscore clicked. Change this on both the SAML and the CS file. So now we are also navigating to the add new. Actually, I am not. I have to implement that navigation. So it's just going to be something very similar, except I don't want to do a push modal. I want to just do a push. And by the way, this has to be async to the new book page. So something very similar, but a push navigation to a different page. And of course, because this is a push navigation, the new book page is going to have a back button to navigate back to the main page. So this navigation is pretty much ready. What I want to do now is simulate the crash. So let's say that the crash is going to happen when we save a book. So what I want to do is have a method that is going to be executed when a book is saved. And usually you would have, and let me actually create a new class, a C# class that represents your model. For example, a book class. And this book class may have its own properties, of course. For example, a string for the ID, a string for the name of the book, a string for the author, a string for the publisher, maybe a string for the ISBN, something like this. So this is the structure of one of your classes. And you may have inside of the same class that is defining the model, a public method that is going to be save book method. That is of course going to save to some database and return the result of saving to the database. Let's say that in this case, it is going to be true. This method then is going to be called whenever a save button in this content page is going to be clicked. So let's add that save button. I am inside of the content page toolbars, going to add another toolbar item. The text is going to be save, and it's going to have its clicked event handler, save button underscore clicked. So it is from this event handler from which we want to call that method that eventually is going to save. And let me just close all of these files that I'm no longer using. So this method that is eventually going to save the book. Of course, from here you would access the book class, and the book class has a save button. Of course, it is not static, so I should create first an instance of book. And let's say that it has some author. Eventually, I just want to save this book like this. With this structure, now we know that everything is going to be happening from the save book button. What the new book page is doing is simply calling that method. It of course creates the book, maybe with the content that is coming from the SAML page, maybe some entries, maybe a picker or something like that, and eventually everything is going to be saved. In this scenario then, it is from this method from where you want to start reporting to App Center everything that is happening. So So what I'm going to do in here is change this to return false, and I'm actually, before returning false, going to simulate a crash that is going to be reported to App Center. And to do that, for now, what I am going to do is access crashes, which of course exists in another namespace. So I am going to add it, microsoft.appcenter.crashes, and it actually contains a generate test crash method. That again is going to happen, in this case, every single time we click the save button in the new book page. So let's go ahead and test this out. I am going to run this on an Android simulator. I will have to navigate over to the new book page and from there click the save button. It is going to call the save button method from the book class, where we are always generating a test crash. Let's take a look at this. And so I have here the application up and running on an Android simulator. Again, the first thing that I have to do is navigate over to that new book page and click the save button. I will see that indeed a crash has been generated. I'm going to hit on continue and my application has crashed. Perfect, I have successfully crashed my application. Now there are other ways in which you could have done this, but now App Center has quickly helped us to crash our application. So we have the test crash, at least one generated by App Center. To finish up this lecture, I want to generate a crash myself. And I am going to do it from the login page. When we are, instead of navigating over to the pop model async, I am going to throw a new exception. And this is simply going to be a general exception that is going to have some message and is of course prevent the pop model async from happening and should also crash our application. We can actually test this out real quick to see if this is correct. If it is, we will have two places where our application is crashing. Two places where we should start tracking errors. Two places that should eventually be reporting things to App Center. So let's navigate over to login. I'm going to click on this huge button in here. And indeed, my application is crashing again. Perfect. We have successfully crashed our application from two different places throughout this lecture. So in the next lecture, we're going to actually create an App Center helper class that is going to have a method that can track these kind of errors. And we're going to see over from App Center exactly how that is being tracked.